Well, good morning, world. It's good morning in Tucson, and I'm Donna Reed with Keller Williams, Southern Arizona, and I'm here with my brother.
Eric Seaman, and I'm with Keller Williams Heritage in San Antonio, Texas.
And we are here with our podcast, Real Siblings. It Ain't Easy. And we're celebrating. Eric, is that good to say? We're celebrating that this is our eighth episode.
Eighth episode. I think I'm moving forward. We're going to call it Market on the Eights.
Mark it on the eights. There you go. So our podcast has been about sharing with you our life and where we grew up in a small town in Ohio, and comparing and contrasting things to where we live and work now in real estate. Myself in Arizona, Eric in Texas. And this time around, we felt like it was important to give you a little bit more information about us and who we are, and the details about the markets where we work and kind of nationally. So, Eric, I'm going to throw it over to you. Tell us who you are.
Yeah. So, and again, part of our discussion on this is as we edited going, we just kind of assume that people know who we are. And we got new listeners and we're gaining new listeners. So who are we? So my full name is Eric Victor Seaman. The middle name comes from my maternal grandfather, whose full name was Angus Joseph Victor Seaman. Like my grandfather. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Angus Joseph Victor Torsberg. Good grief. Mom married into the Seaman family name. Yep. But like his brothers, they all used their third name. Something to do with the Swedish background, but that's where the Victor comes from. I'm really not sure where mom and dad picked Eric from. Don't know where that one came from. I am 57 years old this year, and as you know, we try to publish these on the 16th and the 28th in correlation with our birthdays. And from a schooling standpoint, I went to, and you're going to hear some of this when my sister goes, I went to Washington Elementary, which was the Washington Township or Lindsay School. I went to Fremont Ross Junior High, and then to Fremont Ross High School, all in Fremont, Ohio. And then from there, being the slightly rebellious youngest child, imagine that. Don't make these faces, Donna. My dad was an Ohio State Buckeye. I couldn't do it. So north of the border, I went to Michigan State, became a Michigan State Spartan, started at 84, graduated in 88, and I was Army ROTC. So I was in the military first, commissioned as a second lieutenant, initially stationed in Germany, part of Desert Storm, Desert Shield, First Gulf War, depending on how you refer to it. Was stationed in Germany when the Berlin Wall came down, and shortly thereafter they decided they didn't need me anymore. So I found myself going to be an unemployed dad with two young children out of Germany long before the ages of the internet, hooked up with a headhunter service, ended up doing 12 interviews in 2 days, and had two offers. One was going to end up having me work in downtown Chicago. The second one was San Antonio. Hello, welcome to Texas. May 9th of 1992, I arrived in San Antonio, Texas, and I've been here 30 and a half years at this point. Following the military, my first job, corporate world. Clark American was the name of the company. They're now Vericast. It's continued to grow, multi-million-dollar company then, now it's a billion-dollar industry. So 30 years here, my house out in Bandera County, where I actually live now, we've been in over 20 years. And in case some of you don't know, I put on here for our notes going, let's tell them something they may not know about us. Take a look at the beard. And 40 years, hard to imagine. 40 years was the first time I was in a paid position playing Santa Claus in and around Fremont. So that's a little bit about me.
Can't share this with the kids and grandkids because now they think Santa's not real. Right, little brother.
All right, on to you, sis.
So, wow, Eric, I think I learned things about you, maybe, So, yeah, I'm Eric's older sister. I know it's hard to believe, right? So my name is Donna Marie. I never use that. Donna Seaman Reed. And as we talk about our names, I married the name Donna Reed. It was good for work, for business, for being named the same
celebrity status.
Yeah, an older actress, and I just kept it because as Eric can attest, we had many nicknames with the last name Seaman growing up, and the boys had it worse than I did. My birthday's in June, June 28th. And I'm older than him, but that's all you need to know. We'll talk about that in statistics. So. And like Eric said, grew up in Lindsay, a town of 500 people. We've mentioned elementary school there. We went through 8 grades when I was there. And then we went into the 9th grade at the junior high, where a lot of the small towns came together. And we just were there 1 year. I was there 9th grade, then over to the high school, Fremont Ross. And after that, I left and joined Up With People. So if you don't know what Up With People is, we can have you Google that. I traveled the world a couple years and then came to the University of Arizona, met my husband, moved back to Ohio, finished my degree at the University of Toledo.
Rockets.
Yep, Rockets. Yep. And I lived in Ohio for 20 more years, but my husband was a Tucsonan and always wanted to come back to the city that, if you're watching, you see behind me, that's A Mountain for the U of A. And came back here in the year 2000. We had a couple of sons, particularly one, Adam, who does the song at the beginning of this. He was a junior in high school. He wasn't super happy about moving his junior year. However, life changes, we move. And those of you that were in the military that watch this, you know that you don't even have any control. People tell you where you're going to go and when you're going to go. So I have now been in Tucson since the year 2000. This is my 22nd year here. And I have been in real estate since 2005. So I joined when the market was kind of crazy going up in 2005 before the crash and, the 7-8 time frame. And one thing that nobody knows about me, Eric, that's fascinating because, I'm a Facebook, share everything kind of person. But often on my bio, I tell people that I was awakened by police on the streets of Florence, sleeping outside Pitti Palace with other tourists and ruffians who couldn't find a room. So I was much younger. I was willing to sleep on a sidewalk then. I'm not saying.
And wasn't there some sort of story about how you got woken up by the police and somebody else?
Yeah. There was a drunk who shook his blanket on us. It was nasty, but the world doesn't need to know all of those details. So that's who we are. That's kind of where we got to where we are. And Eric has been doing a lot of research on statistics. He's really good at this, and I have to admit, much better than I am. So Eric, why don't you share some of what you have found nationally?
Yeah, so we wanted to go into this, and it's part of presenting who we are, also kind of compare and contrast, because that's kind of a, let's say, modus operandi of our podcast, is how we compare and match up to the National Association of Realtors. Maybe you've heard of that as NAR, statistics on what the average, and I just did air quotes for everybody who's not watching the video, real estate agent is, and kind of where we fit in, how we stand out. Do we say we're abnormal, above average, don't meet the, I don't know which way you want to present that. We're not abnormal. So first and foremost is, I gotta say, you can take a look at this. We both meet the first demographic statistic, which is 78% of all real estate agents identify as being white. Which I much prefer that. I'll just tell you, I prefer that terminology than Caucasian. If you've ever gotten a question and had, can you answer this demographic information? I go, do you know where the Caucasus Mountains are at? That's my question back to the person who's asking me the question. And they're like, what? And it's like, okay, we're done.
You're such a weirdo.
So we kind of talked 80-20 rule. So that means nearly 80% of all real estate agents through the National Association of Realtors. Now that doesn't mean everybody, because not everybody who is a real estate agent is a member of the National Association of Realtors. You may have seen those commercials. All real estate agents, or man, I can't even think of the way it goes. All realtors are real estate agents. Not all real estate agents are realtors. And realtors is officially the name you can bear, promote, use if you're a member of the National Association of Realtors.
Pronouncing realtor correctly.
So what's that?
Thanks for pronouncing realtor correctly.
A realtor, yeah. The other one that stands out is 65% of real estate agents are women.
I'm raising my hand.
So we are a female dominated business. And then the median age for a real estate agent is 54 years old. And I said, I'm 57 and Donna's older than me. So does that make us? We are well above average.
I like that better than abnormal. I like above average.
So that's some of the quick demographic stats. Donna, what about business stats? Because I know you had some thoughts on that.
Yeah, as Eric was researching business stats, we were talking about how many hold licenses and how many are brokers and things like that. He's got all those numbers. But what was the most interesting to me is what percent of business comes from past clients. So the average agent across the country gets about 15% of their business from past clients. And those of us who have 16 or more years, that goes up to 37%. I really got to go look at mine. I keep old school. I do an Excel spreadsheet every year to see where my business comes from and who are.
And where do you keep your passwords?
Oh, stop it. In a little book. He just found out that I have a little book that I keep my passwords in. Oh, we cannot let our older brother hear this. So, but for me, I'm not a cold caller. I don't do door knocking. My business comes from networking. And then predominantly now, this is my 17th going into my 18th year, from past clients and who they refer. So you don't come into this business and expect to make $1 million. That's not true. There are people who come into the business and expect to make $1 million, right away. And you and I can both attest to the fact that that doesn't typically happen. And so for me, those stats were interesting, and it makes me want to go back and see if I am above average in the past client market, and or I know that probably 2% comes from just random calls or sign calls. Everybody else is my network. And that's how, I guess that's what we're doing here, right? We're here to promote ourselves. And
you have multiple networks.
I do have multiple networks. That's true. I think that sometimes we go into this business and we'll ask, I call everybody a kid now. They can be 40 and I call them a kid, but they'll come into the business and it's like, I don't have any networks. Well, do you play basketball with anybody? Do you go to church? Do you just hang out on a soccer field with the parents of other people watching their children? Those become your networks. And for me, the Up With People group is a network, the Tucson one for sure, but even nationally, because so many come back to Tucson for a second home or to come back here. My church group, women's group, women over 50 group.
Are you a Red Hat?
Are
you a member of the Red Hat Society?
We were, and we changed our name from Red Hat to Margaritas because I go to St. Mark's, because margaritas sounded cuter in the desert. Margaritas. Yeah, so I've done business with the margaritas. The other group that has become clients for me, Eric, is the group that you don't ask to join. It's the group who have been divorced, who have lost a spouse in death, who may have had a bankruptcy or a foreclosure, who have kids that have been in trouble. And these aren't the ones you go searching for. But if you are honest about who you are, those people come to you because they know you understand. Look how emotional I get.
Yeah. And I think that is, again, why we're doing what we're doing today. I mean, we want to be transparent and authentic about who we are and where we came from. And not only the small town, but look,
the trials.
The title of our show is, for those of you seen the logo, the TV set, it says real simple. We cross that out and put in siblings, because within the real estate market industry, it's like, look, things can be simple, but that doesn't mean they're necessarily easy.
Right.
And playing off of that, we did with the real siblings. It ain't easy. And I can attest, I mean, like every sibling, even though Donna and I have a tremendous relationship, we don't agree on everything. We have differing views on things and people, and we'll just not go into a whole lot of detail, right? But just but we did really, really well. And I think that goes back to our small town.
Yeah.
I mean,
Our-
we did have an extremely idyllic opportunity in where we grew up. And it's, you can say small town life, but, and I know we've talked about how small it is, but again, in preparation for this,
yeah.
I had said to my sister that I said, I think the neighborhood that I first moved into San Antonio 30 years ago was almost as big as our hometown. And when I
Yep.
say neighborhood, there were actually 4 streets that have names in this neighborhood. 3 of the streets were fairly long and about a kilometer.
Yep.
One of them that had houses on it, and I'm saying 3 streets because these are 3 streets that actually had houses that fronted them that were considered to be an address to it. And I pulled up that neighborhood and I did a count the other day. There were 148 total houses on those 4 streets. Our hometown had 176 houses in it. So a neighborhood that had 4 streets, 3.5 kilometers of road,
The size of our hometown.
the size of our hometown.
Eric, I think our apartment complex here before our house was built was about the same. And I used to tell people when I was on the road and up with people, they would say, how many people live where you grew up? And I'd say 499 because I'm not home.
And I pulled some of the stats and I don't have them with me in front, but we kind of lived and grew up in town at its terminology, apogee, or at its apex. Because since the 1970 census and 1980 census, it has steadily gone down in population. And
I think that's related, Eric, I think that's related to the same number of homes, but fewer children per family. That's my gut, because no houses have really come down, right?
No. There hasn't been demolition. It's right. Been a change in family status.
Yeah. So
well, and I mean, you think of the corner that we were at. We were on the corner of Lynn and Maple.
Yep.
There was one house to his caddy corner.
Yep. Because there used to be another,
Smiths.
and then that was torn down when the parking lot was put in.
Right. Yeah. So we ended up with a church caddy corner to the church parking lot, our house caddy corner to the Smith's house.
Yep.
And between those 2 houses, there were
4, 8.
Six for us, and Smiths had.
They had 6, 3 girls and a boy.
So there were 12 people population wise in 2 houses.
Wait. Smiths had Lori, Linda, Lisa, and Ryan, and mom and dad. So 12.
Yeah.
12,
so that's what I'm saying. 12 between the 2 houses.
Yeah.
And that doesn't happen as much anymore. Family mix has changed.
Yeah.
Which is why it's interesting. Use that as our segue to go into our market. Yeah. I mean, generally, I don't know about you, but my clients go, well, what do you want? What are you looking for? And it's like, well, we need at least a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. Right? And that's not what we had in Lindsay. I mean, that's not what our house was, our big 2,200 square foot house.
Yeah.
We've seen some of the other houses that are currently have been sold recently, and they are still a 1 full bath, maybe a half bath added, tucked in someplace. But the age of the houses, that was not the norm.
No, 3 bedrooms. So the one that I lived in on Walnut Street was 3 bedrooms and 1 bath. And Gills and my bedroom was right off that bathroom. And then there was the hallway bedroom upstairs and one other one. So, and that was pretty common. If Dan hadn't been in the dormer of the house on Main Street, it was really a 2-bedroom. That little peaked room
right.
he slept.
And you know what? I think that's officially, I looked it up the other day, and I think that's officially how the county still has it listed as like a 2-bedroom, which I was trying to figure that out, which means they really aren't even counting the room at the top of the stairs because it didn't have a separate door. Your room was not a bedroom. So they're counting Mom and Dad's bedroom on the first floor and the room that primarily Ken and I remember sharing on the second floor in the Main Street house, because Dan's dormer area was not considered a bedroom. Your room, since it had no door and no privacy, would not be considered a bedroom. And here we are. We had a family of 6 ultimately before we moved in a house that had 2 bedrooms with 1 bath.
So now in Tucson, the market here, we have about 1 million people all year round, and I haven't looked recently, but about 2 million in the winter when everybody from the north comes this way. And people ask, where do you live? I live in Tucson, and I actually have a Tucson address, but like all cities, then the suburbs are there and people still say they live in the city. So it's a little like Chicago to me. People say, oh yeah, we live in Chicago, because it's easier than telling you which suburb they're in.
Well, it's like California. A lot of people say I'm living in Southern California because that just means that it's Los Angeles, San Diego, somewhere.
Right. So what's population of San Antonio?
So I think San Antonio right now is officially just over 2 million for the population within the city limits. But then we have an unusual metro area. San Antonio had a lot of suburbs in the 1800s and early 1900s that stopped growing, and San Antonio grew like an amoeba and completely surrounded them. So there are a large number of suburbs that are completely surrounded by the city. If you're in the middle, you go north, south, east, and west, you are going to end up in San Antonio by going a couple miles in one direction or the other. And that includes towns like Alamo Heights, Hollywood Park, Terrell Hills, Almost Park, all of these little subdivisions that just have been completely consumed by San Antonio. By the time you add all of those in, we're up to about 2.5 million.
So what's interesting, I was thinking about it as you were talking. So I think Houston's the same way, because I remember Houston's just got circle, 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 and Phoenix kind of like that. But Tucson is surrounded by 4 mountain ranges. So if you go
do north, the poem,
Catalina, Rincon, Santa Rita, Tucson.
There you go. Thanks.
Those are our mountain ranges. Catalina's to the north, Catalina, Rincon, Santa Rita, Tucson. And the we can't go. Once you hit the Catalina Mountains, there's mountains there. And once you reach the Rincons, there's mountains there. And then you can go around one little road out behind and come to the backside, and you go through a couple of mining towns. But for us, we really could only go southeast or northwest. And farmland has been sold, and the city is growing in those directions. And Catalina a little bit to the north on the old road to Phoenix, but where people wanted to be, and we're in the country and probably aren't really thrilled that we're all coming those directions. You know, if you moved out so that you could be on your own, the plus is that for people that have owned for a long time, they have large properties. They have 3 acres or 5 acres or 10 acres, as compared to the subdivisions that are going in where, you know, they're 7,000 square feet or 6,000 square feet or whatever they are. So way more space, and we have many things that are grandfathered in. So even just a couple miles north of me by Canyon del Oro High School, where Caleb and Adam graduated, there are people that still have their horse property right there because it's all grandfathered in. So there are kids that would leave school and they would board their horses, and I can literally drive to that in like 3 minutes. That to me is fascinating. So think of Fremont Ross back in Ohio, and think about, you know, going down to the corner where the Denny's was, and that's a horse property, and the city has grown around it. So everybody back in Fremont, just picture that.
Yeah, everybody back in Fremont. And the fact that you said Denny's, you obviously were back in town. I remember that a Denny's had gone in, but I think I only ever stopped there once with Dad years ago,
and
because that was
store
a much later development. So yeah, we took a look at our markets right now, and just wanted to give you a quick review, or a quick overview. Maybe, that's probably the better terminology. Overview. And right now, if I'm looking at SFDs, which in our multiple listing servers, or MLS as you may hear it, stands for single family dwelling, SFD. And that doesn't make a difference. That nomenclature, without any kind of searching, doesn't take into account any number of bedrooms, any kind of square footage, any number of bathrooms, size of the lot, any of those things. There are just over 9,000 properties on the market right now. And last month, we sold just under 3,300 houses closed in the month of August. So with just over 9,000 and closing 3,300, we have somewhere between 2.5 to 3 months worth of inventory on hand, which the height of the pandemic and the great what
A price increase?
yeah, not great price increase, but let's say great migration.
Yeah.
Where people started going, you know what? I don't have to live here because everybody's working remote now and I can work wherever I live and work wherever I don't want to please.
Yep.
We were down, I think the smallest I remember seeing it was 0.9 months of inventory
That's
on
about
hand.
what we were too, Eric. So I looked at my numbers too, just before we got on the call, and we had about 4,500 active listings, which last time I looked, it was 3,000. So I think people are panicking. Sellers are like, oh my gosh, I missed the bubble. I missed the bubble. And they may have, because we have to tell sellers it might not sell in 3 hours right now. It might take a couple of weeks. That is still not a balanced market per se for us. It's not going to be 6 months of inventory. And I looked real quickly. We closed a little over 2,700 homes in the last month, which for us is August, because we're doing this in September. So the September stats
Right, and that's what my stats were too. We're August stats.
Yeah. But what that means for all of us is that sellers have to be reasonable, and what their neighbors sold for 3 months ago, 4 months ago, June, it's different. It's already different. And I've even had a buyer ask for a concession from the seller. And for a while.
Oh yeah, that was not happening.
Nobody was doing a concession. And I think at our lowest, it might've been February. I can't remember exactly, but at our lowest.
February of 21?
No. February of this year, we had about 1,000 on the market.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So definitely increasing, definitely getting back to normal. We just have to remind clients not to freak out, both buyers and sellers. Everybody just has to be practical. And oh, by the way, interest rates went up, right? So somebody that could afford a $300,000 house a few months ago might only be able to afford a $250,000 right now. Or
250. So it's changing expectations, managing maybe where they were going to look to live.
Yep.
They've got to broaden their search area, but it's still out there.
Yep.
It's still out there.
It is. So,
all right. I'm sitting there, I'm looking at the clock, and I know we got to wrap things up. And I didn't actually say, Donna said that she put the Tucson behind her, and the picture in behind me is San Antonio. It's El Mercado, the original. It's much greatly developed from what it originally was, but it was the Mexican market area. And if you remember last episode, I talked about the fact that it took 3 weeks to get from Bandera into San Antonio to do and go and sell shingles. That this is where they went. They went to the marketplace to
that's neat.
Buy fruit, do produce, and now of course it's a big party area, restaurants, lots of music. I actually had 1983, my first margarita in Mitiaras, El Mercado. I was there with my brother, our brother Ken, along with our cousin Barb, and I was underage and always looking older than I did. I bought.
You weren't yet long gray beard Santa, but
no, because I was still. I mean, heck, I was still high school. I thought I was. That's still when I started with the part down the middle of my head.
Back in the day when
back in the day. So bringing this one to a close, we want to thank everyone for listening. Hopefully, this gives you a better idea of who Donna is, who I am, where we've come from, a little bit more about us. And understand again that this is, I'll say, a labor of love for us in this podcast to talk about our background, our history, connect with listeners. And our goal is always to assist you, for those of you who need help in Tucson or San Antonio, to buy that perfect property that you can call home and create lasting memories. And again, reminder, if you're around the country or around the world, we have a network of professionals that we can connect you with and help you outside of our market. And just remember, it may be simple, but it ain't always easy. And until next time, I'm Eric.
And I'm Donna.
And we are Real Siblings.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye, y'all.